I know we get the shits with it when sometimes we've been pulled in for saying, mate, we're talking about the sport, we're helping you.
If it was a 2-race weekend, everyone would be calling for Davo to retire.
Maybe throw a bit of shit back at the team.
I feel like this has been the best touring car racing I've seen since like the Toka days.
Couldn't have spoken higher about the product and the racing on track, and then they got the Saturday afternoon.
And shit the bed.
Just felt like they stood on their DIC cup.
Oh no! He's in the fence! The boat's in the fence! They're all in the fence! Oh, unbelievable!
Can we open these drinks?
You thirsty, eh, Barbs?
God, yeah.
All right, am I recording? Definitely recording.
Hope so.
Microphones, I'm so nervous for this. At least we're live streaming. I could just post the live stream if I have to.
That one doesn't have to be recording.
What's that?
This one, yeah, it's got the...
Oh, because it's hooked, that's hooked to this, and then this ends up being, so that one cable there is
Still
everything
controls
on that.
Yeah.
But
I'm
you
just
still
making
adjust
sure.
it, yeah. Don't question me now.
That one should be red, shouldn't it? Oh.
Yeah. Sound check.
Sound check.
Oh, that was
Juicy.
That was a good one. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. I'm having a little very best today too.
You're on your vitamin Bs. We're back at the bar.
We are.
Super excited to be back at the bar. The couch just doesn't feel like we're at home. I mean, you behind the bar looks much more comfortable.
I feel it too.
It's also easier to have more than one in a podcast because otherwise you got to get up off your ass and go.
That's the thing. We ran dry real early. I'm like, well, this is it. I'm not getting up now.
We did. Episode 38. We're
Yep.
back. It's AGP debrief. This one. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube, turn your notifications on, and that's important because we've got a couple of really cool podcasts that are coming out in the next week and next week. We've got Earl Evans and Steve Blackmore who joined the show on the Thursday night of the Melbourne Grand Prix, so that was really cool. I've dropped that on Patreon, so if you do want to see it early, sub to Patreon and you'll get the early drop, as well as the Scotty Mac one. That's actually dropping this week on Patreon as well. So if you are a member, you're going to be inundated with content. But yeah, so that's something we're excited about. Scotty was a great chat as well. A couple of hours he sat with us, had a beer with us, which was a big surprise because he sat down on the waters and changed his mind actually and joined us for a beer.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to re-watching the Scotty show. I think when we stopped recording, I said, fuck, that was good chat. Like, I mean, we hadn't seen him in a little while either, so it's always nice to reconnect, I guess. But
yeah,
good chat. Such a good dude. Amazing driver. Awesome stories.
We can load it up too. Like I did. I'll tell you guys, we had a run-in 2019. So Scotty Mac and I hadn't actually spoken since 2019.
He
so.
wasn't a fan of yours.
No, but it was awesome because like everyone we've talked about, the common interest is motorsport and settled the scores pretty quickly and got on with it. And realised like a lot of water's passed under the bridge, but it was actually pretty funny to address it. And he did. He was
straight out the gates with it too.
He was, yeah. And it was funny because he actually reached out to Shane and said, tell Scotty that the Lance Armstrong of Supercars would come on his podcast. If you don't know the story, just type in Scott Pye calls Scott McLaughlin Lance Armstrong of Supercars and you'll get all the headlines.
If you don't know the story, subscribe to Patreon and you'll get it this week.
Yeah, true. It's dropping early. Let's get into it, mate. We've got your race week, which is something we wanted to touch on before we get into the debrief because it's important that punters know you're going racing too. So we've got the Trans Am this weekend in Tasmania. Firstly, where can they watch it?
It's good this year. The broadcast rights are really cool. So free to air, which is rare for good level motorsport in Australia. So SBS free to air. But also if you are subscribed to KO, it'll be on KO as well. So you've got free to air and you've got paid subscriptions as well across both platforms all year, which is awesome. So yeah, we're in Tassie. I'm excited to get back in the race car. Feels like it's been a little while. Huge field, 32 cars.
I just read that in the notes here. It's like 32 cars on a corner with what is it, like six corners? And I feel like they've added some GST to the corners. Some of them aren't really. So they
three decent corners and a couple of squiggles.
And the racing there last year was actually good because you can actually draft in Trans Am.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do passing and things like that as well, which is good. 32 cars going to be crazy around that little joint.
I'm home this weekend. I'll be sitting on the couch with a beverage watching you and around and hopefully you're one of 32. That'd
be nice. The car looks good. If you have seen the livery that we dropped, Scotty came over and 19 Media came over to Adelaide and they did the release video for us and the pictures.
I'll put a bit of an overlay in the video anyway so people can actually see if they haven't seen the video of your car. The Pioneer DJ thing looked beautiful. Got the numbers on the door as well. I don't know if you saw the listeners, if you saw the Shaw car on the weekend at the Melbourne Grand Prix with Bryce Fullwood behind the wheel. There's a cheeky little Apex Hunters sticker on the door. But the numbers were on the door of that car. And Phil from Pioneer is a big fan of that look. And it's awesome that a sponsor knows what the fans want because that was something he said to me. is I've seen every time a livery gets revealed, every comment is like, where's the fucking numbers on the door? It's about time someone did this. And so, yes, he's done that. And it's also new Trans Am, which does look good.
Yeah, so that actual, if you did catch that shortcut, it was kind of a tweaked version of our base design, which for those who've listened to the show would know that we took that design from SVG's WeatherTech Chev NASCAR. So, it was cool that Phil's into the NASCAR look and all that. And it was actually good on Brad Jones for allowing Phil to do what he wanted. Like, Phil was the one that pushed for the AHU sticker to be on there. Through Jan's Shure Microphone, support us on the pod and hit us up with all the great gear so we sound as amazing as we do. So, yeah, it was cool that, Brad allowed Phil to have sort of free reign on what the car wanted to look like, which was cool. So I thought it looked great. That was cool. But, I'm racing this weekend. It's going to be awesome. It's a genuine 2-day event too, which is cool.
I like that you put in there a genuine 2-day event.
So we can't bump in till Friday, like just before lunch. We've got a little bit of media stuff because it's the first round of the championship to do on the Friday, but no running of the cars or anything. And then Saturday, Sunday. So Saturday, 1 prac, straight to qual, 25-lap race. And then Sunday, we've got 3 25-lap races. But because they want us, we're the main event at the race Tasmania being Trans Am. So they want us all within the broadcast, which I think is from 1 till 5.
Yep.
So we've got 3 races, 75 laps worth of racing with only like an hour turnaround in between. So it's going to be, got to keep my nose clean because we won't have a lot of time to fix anything.
Want to be fit as well. That's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Intense back-to-back racing. That's how it should be though, isn't it? I think that's one of the things that the Grand Prix lacks is this constant on-track action. I felt like it's really more of an event for those that want to hang around the infield now than an actual motorsport event.
It's definitely like the horse races now. It's like people go there to be seen, wear some fancy gear, maybe sneak into a corporate suite, drink some champagne, act like they've got $1 million. I don't know how many. I'm sure there was genuine race fans there in the GA section with us that were standing in the pissing down rain on Sunday. That was good, wasn't it? Freezing me ass off. I had to borrow Shannon's AHU jumper because I was freezing. I just had a T-shirt on.
And we actually ended up at the pub. We left after 20 laps or so and went to the pub and watched the end of it at the Gardner Hotel in front of a fire. So that was good. But yeah, GA.
Sucked out there when the weather.
It was tough, and also the shade they had in the infield was shade from the sun, but it was not waterproof. But it would hold some water. And fuck, it was funny. This girl was standing in front of us. There's me, you, and Shan with Rowan actually from East Coast Car Rentals. We're standing there with the umbrella, and this massive dump of water just landed on top of her, just covered her, and but that was funny. But yeah, I guess GA, that's what you get. You deal with the elements.
You do.
But it's still a very cool event. But yeah, I'm excited to see you race this weekend, mate. Hopefully it's a good one for you. So good luck.
Fingers crossed. Thank you. If you are watching and you do want to show us some love on socials, please do.
Yeah, go follow Elliot on socials as well. Keep an eye on what he's doing. Before we roll into the supercar stuff, I actually want to give a quick shout out to our partners as well because I know this is the part of the show that everyone would love to skip through, but we're actually very lucky that we've been able to do more podcasts this year already because we can allocate the time to it because of the partners and also the Patreon. We're live streaming tonight's show. So we've got a live chat going here at the moment. Someone's actually joined us from the UK, Jay Payne. It's 6 a.m. in the UK, so morning.
Dedication. Cheers.
Morning, mate.
Cheers to you, sir.
But of course, if you are traveling, you want to get a rental car, use a discount code of 15% off. Pretty good. AHU15 at East Coast Car Rentals. And all the links to these websites are in the description of the videos as well. Trico Products. Support us since day one. Best in the business. So you don't even need to look anywhere else. If you're looking for white blades, go for those guys. And if you want to buy a car, Lancaster Motor Group. And they're actually running a special at the moment until June this year, 2025. They're going to give you an option for a free wheel alignment if you get your car service with them. So if you're in the Singleton region and you are getting your car service with Lancaster Motor Group, mention Apex Hunters United and they'll give you the option to take up that free wheel alignment. Shore & Partners as well as a new one, which was really cool because Earl coming on, we have definitely been on the fringe or maybe on the edge of what is accepted sometimes. It's really cool when brands come on now and just sort of see what we're trying to do and support us without, no one's been telling us to do and say anything in particular. They just like, yeah, we like what you're doing, support it. They covered the microphones. So that's been really good. And of course, Patreon as well is we've got a pretty good community we're starting to build there.
It's great.
And they are really contributing to the show, which is why we live stream because it's like the memos. I feel like if you get the memos in, it keeps what you're talking about kind of on track. It's like if you never look at socials or watch anyone else's content, you just do two blokes running their own thing, I feel like you kind of end up missing the mark because whatever we're interested in isn't always going to be what everyone wants to hear. So
No, that's right.
one thing that I always use as well is, and they helped us out with all the content at the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, is Quad Lock. So Quad Lock, the phone cases are one thing, but all the attachments go with it. But make sure you use the link in the description of this video if you want to use it. That comes back to us to let them know that you used our link, so it supports our show. But they've been good supporters of mine, and we use the product here on the pod as well.
Yeah.
Quadlockcase.net, or just use the link in the description if you want to look after us. Let's get into the supercar action, mate. We'll start with some of your thoughts before we go into the results, and then we are going to touch on the wet race, which was an absolute shit show. It was a shit show.
My thoughts, mate. We'll do Thursday, Friday. Amazing racing.
Yeah.
Super action-packed. Again, we watched the Thursday one here in the studio before Earl and Steve came in for their show. Again, edge-of-the-seat stuff, heaps of passing, whether it was for third back to 23rd, there was just haymakers getting thrown left, right and centre. So I thought that was super entertaining, really good racing. The short races without the pit stops I thought was, it was pure sprint racing.
It was unreal.
It was really good. Saturday, it was pretty good again. The racing, obviously a little bit of controversy, which we got dragged into with the Ryan Wood, Jack LeBrock incident. But other than that,
I can't believe the shitstorm you caused, Elliot.
I know. I'm pretty good on the
You're so controversial.
Yeah, I know.
If you want to catch up, go to our socials. You'll see what happened there. But you're right. Like, there was a lot happening.
Yeah.
And the racing is just like those sprint races at the Melbourne Grand Prix always deliver. I don't know what it is about the place, whether it's just the nature of the circuit. Like, it looks like one of the places you shouldn't be able to follow that close, like especially with the high-speed stuff across the back. But
you know what I think
the racing's always unreal there.
I think too, because it's quite high speed, the braking zones are slightly longer, so you've got more of an opportunity to pass.
Yeah.
Because, rather than being a 100-metre braking zone, maybe it's 150 there.
Yep.
Or so on. So, yeah, I don't know. And also, as you said, long corners gives people a chance to have a bit of a stuff up, and then they have to reset the throttle and people can get runs. And yeah, but you're right. Just good, solid, hard racing. Like, we haven't really, Sydney obviously we did, but years prior there hasn't really been a lot of that, and it feels like they've come out the gate strong this year with 5, 6. Well, there wasn't a race 7, but sort of 6 races of full-on racing. So, and I think Taupo is not going to be any different.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, I for some reason, it is always the Grand Prix, though. Like, I feel like we had this chat last year after the meeting and went, fuck, why is it with this place it always delivers good racing? Because I feel like we sat here and went, sprint racing, unreal, like that's the way to go. And I think as well with the 75 points per race, the risk versus reward is definitely better because you can have an accident or make a mistake and lose a few spots. And instead of it being a 150-point race, it's only 75. So your penalty is much less. Exactly. So people are willing to take more risk, I think. I think it's important that it is a points round because otherwise it would just probably be a complete shit show. But the one thing with Woody, who we'll get to as a standout, I thought, in my opinion, but his incident, which is ultimately what caused the controversy on our page, but I think that the way Beardo's letting them race, I'm a big fan of. I think letting it play out on the track, which is probably why the Woody one became a talking point anyway, because some of the stuff they've let go was probably worse than what we've seen there. And I'm not saying that Woody was 100% in the right. Maybe, I feel like there's usually partial blame on both sides. Like, I've literally been in the same situation where someone else has got the penalty, but I've known deep down there's probably something I could have done different. And I'm sure
tango.
Both, yeah, exactly. So a PLP was a big jump, I thought, on that one. Maybe it is a 15-second penalty or something. But the consistency is something I think they're going to have to really make sure they're on top of because it really alters the outcome of weekends and the championship. And the one with Chaz later in the weekend where he hit James Golding, I think it was. Yeah, big front lock-up, pretty much T-boned the guy. And it wasn't until later that night, I think he got the 30-second penalty, or after the race anyway. And I think that the fact that they made the penalty for Woody so fast and then waited so long for what was a real black and white one I thought with Chaz was kind of strange.
It was obviously late enough because I'd already seen comments on socials going, how has Chaz not got a penalty yet?
Yeah.
So it was obviously late enough for fans to be lighting up in the comments section. But the other thing with a PLP at the GP is it's like double the length of a normal because the lane is so long there as well, but also the cars are going so fast as well. So it like quadruples almost like the sort of penalty you'd get at, say, Sandown or wherever, a normal track, a normal 30-second run through the lane is like over a minute there.
Yeah.
Plus what you lose because the car's doing 250 versus 180.
Yeah. One thing I will say about Beardo, and this was pretty cool, like I wasn't actually, the post on our page when it went out calling it a BS call, which I think all of us, probably the punters as well, thought that was a really harsh penalty for something that didn't look completely black and white. But he did ring me. He actually rang me on Sunday morning and we had a chat for probably 20 minutes actually. And I liked that, like he sees what we're doing here and he actually called me up to have the conversation about it. I said, to be honest, I actually said I'm not too worried about it. I'm more annoyed that we had to pull the post down because for us, that's like, I really stand against that. I'm like, definitely don't want anyone telling us what to do. But we all equally didn't want to get a driver a penalty. But the incident itself, I think the fans should know that he was really on the front foot, called me and he goes, mate, I'll be honest, I wish I could come on your show once a month and talk about this type of shit because sometimes you do need a bit of insight. Still disagree with the penalty.
Yeah.
I don't know that, whether he should have got a penalty or not, but I think a drive-through was BS. But yeah, I thought that was good. So appreciate Beardo calling. He even offered to show me through some of the vision. But I think at the end of the day, we just need to make sure there's consistency because the racing we're seeing at the moment is awesome. But with penalties like that, we want to see the guys take a lunge. Maybe Woody's was a lunge.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we've encouraged to this point. So to then slap a massive drive-through, not just like a standard one, like a Sydney Motorsport Park pit lane, like you say, the AGP is fucking huge. Sprint race as well. It's a shorter distance. It's not like you're going to get an opportunity to get the time back.
No. Yeah, good on Beardo. He's a great guy. He's a great driver and he's good at what he does.
Shit job too. That would I would hate to be DSO.
I did DSO for a year and a bit in like a low-level category and it's not fun.
No.
So I'd hate to do it in his position. But, I think the thing is, consistency one, but also it's just the communication. So it shouldn't come from Beardo. It should come from Supercars, in my personal opinion.
One thing,
so he doesn't get called out on stuff.
I'll actually add to that, though. Sorry to jump in. Okay. Beardo actually reached out to all the drivers with a message and he told me he offered every driver to come in and sit with him and explain because he didn't want it done in driver's briefing, just he wanted to take the time and talk to everyone.
Yeah. I'm not
guess what happened?
Yeah, only two went. Will Brown?
No, one.
Oh, okay.
Beardo said one person turned up and the other drivers never came. And he said, but it's frustrating because some of the drivers are coming forward then outside that meeting whinging or, in the drivers group complaining. He actually did offer a forum where everyone could come and raise their concerns. Yeah. One person turned up. And he was real. I kind of, from that, I have to see his point there. I'm like, well, that's
100%. If you've
that's
said,
frustrating.
Come see me if you're not sure, that's good on him. I was more talking about to the fans, not to the drivers.
Transparency with those.
The communication with that. Like I understand that, they'd had that conversation. He'd sent out a text saying that it will be outcome based as well. So expect that. So I think from his clarity and communication to the drivers was obviously on point and he couldn't have done any more. I'm just saying for us sitting at home as punters, Supercars and they can funnel it down the broadcast team or whatever can say, this is why that was a PLP because of these three reasons. And then at least we know. Otherwise, if there's no confirmation or communication around that, people go, oh, what the they start throwing opinions, go, this is bullshit. And then 9 out of 10 times, there's usually a very logical reason to why a decision's made. Yeah. We just don't at home have access to everything they've got. Exactly. So it's just purely, I don't care which way something gets called, but if you tell me why the decision was made, I can then live with that.
Yeah.
So I just think
they spend so much time appeasing the teams, I feel, with some of the stuff they do, that they're not then putting the effort into telling us what's happening on the couch.
Yeah,
because you're right, because sometimes just a little bit of transparency would make you go, oh, okay, that's why, entering the lane with the 5-minute rule where they come in under the wet and they can't, if they don't restart within 5 minutes, the race is cancelled, all that sort of stuff. When some information coming back our way would be good.
And I'm big on it not coming from Craig Baird himself. You need to protect him a little bit.
I agree,
So, like NASCAR do it well. It's a NASCAR official. They don't actually name the NASCAR official that hands out a penalty.
Yep.
So it could be a Supercars official and a statement or, as I say, broadcast, Crompo, Scapey, whoever, then read it out over the broadcast. This is what's come from a Supercars official, job done, protects Craig and because he doesn't need to be copping. He doesn't need to be copping shit from people for doing his job.
Yeah, and it's also not always Beardo.
No, that's right. There's
Sydney Motorsport Park, Cooper Murray's penalty, I believe, came, I think Beardo saw it more as like, okay, both could have done something different. Maybe we don't do a penalty. The stewards, I believe, were the ones that stepped in and said, no, this is like 4 out of 5 races this kid's been in something. This is actually a trend. We need to start to teach him that, no, this is not acceptable. Right. And so they So it's not just one person. He still has a team that he works with to decide whether or not penalty needs to be given.
Yeah, Craig advises as a professional driver his opinions.
Yep.
Ultimately, it'll go to stewards and Motorsport Australia officials and Supercars officials that will actually make the decision. He will just say, I think that was out of line and I think this is what the penalty should be within the rule or the matrix that they run to. And then the stewards are the one that will actually impose the penalty most of the time. So,
and like you say, with Supercars being like it's hard. You always have to say Supercars. Like, and I know that people take that personally within Supercars, but unfortunately you're the sporting body. That is, you get wrapped with this. But you're right on broadcast. We need more transparency, or at least better explanations of why things are happening, because some of the stuff that happens when you're standing in the lane, you kind of go, okay, I get it. Like you talk to, engineers, or you talk to Jamie and a few others and they explain it. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. But then it doesn't get translated. Like I spoke to you, I had RD message me during the race, and like when the race got called, and said, what the fuck happened there? And others are messaging as well. Like you messaged me going, what are you getting from...
I said, what a fucking joke, because I didn't know what was going on, because I was just sitting at home.
So you're sitting at home and I was in with T8 and I'm trying to work out like, I was literally standing behind one of the data guys who's looking at the weather, and he's like, why are we coming in the pit lane? There's a 30-minute window here where the rain's about to stop. And of course, as they drove in the lane, we saw the rain stop, the track started to dry. I mean, we'll get to that. Yeah. But it's definitely something that we need to start communicating better back home to everyone on the couch, because ultimately they're the ones that keep us turning up every week as well. And they went from being, I feel like, we talked just before we came on the pod, you said, they've gone from Sydney Motorsport Park in the first couple of races of this weekend, absolute heroes.
Couldn't have spoken higher about the product and the racing on track, and then they got to Saturday afternoon.
And shit the bed.
And they just felt like they stood on their DICK. It was disappointing. But, yeah, it all, to me, it's even like it's an insurance policy for supercars. If they started communicating more, I would purely be doing it as my own insurance policy to make sure there's no background chatter and to keep people informed. Like if it was my business, I'd be like, we need to get comms out to our stakeholders, and all the fans are stakeholders of this.
Yep. And
we just need to make sure they know what's going on so we don't get any backlash. Yeah. Where it's like they're like, just shut it all out and just crack the shits when someone calls them out on it, which is always thousands of fans on social media. So, yeah, I would just communicate more. Because as I say, if someone comes to you and says, this is why we did this, you'll accept it. Yeah. You might not agree, and that's fine, but you'll accept it. Where at the moment I feel like everyone is not accepting it because they don't know what happened.
Yeah. And so some of the issues when I chat to anyone in the lane about this, the way the racing's going at the moment, everyone can actually appreciate how good this has been for the sport. The amount of eyeballs and the amount of people talking about it has been, I think, better than it's... I text someone, I can't remember who it was, I said that I feel like this has been the best touring car racing I've seen since like the Toka days. Remember like the old school touring car highlights you'd watch where it's like proper racing touring
early
car.
British touring cars.
100%, like proper touring cars.
Drawing each other and keeping going,
And but equally, I get the team owners and everything are starting to, and partners are starting to go, holy shit, front bars not cheap, rear bars, they're doing rear bars every race. It's like, it starts to add up fast. But motorsport's not cheap, so
and I think it's highlighting too. Maybe that was a flaw in the new car design. Maybe they shouldn't have been carbon panels. Yeah. Maybe they could have been a cheaper composite.
Well, we see it with the interlocking wheels as well. The wheels which we've gone through, but like there's things with the car. It's like if you want to increase combat racing, which is kind of what we need, the cars need to be able to smash into each other and not cost a fortune to repair.
Touring cars, it's built on door-to-door racing.
Yeah, but that's definitely a positive. The drivers complaining, I guess, about the line and where the limit is and stuff. I don't know 100%. I hate to just put all my eggs in one basket, but hearing that they didn't all turn up to an offering that Beto put out there, it's hard to. I feel like if you want clarity or you want to call out consistency, you need to be going to those meetings. But who knows? I'm only getting that's one side. So maybe the drivers will come forward after this, tell me you're wrong, mate. This isn't how it worked. But I feel like it's hard to blame someone if you're not putting your best foot forward as well. So
I agree.
But as a punter now, I did laugh. I said to the team, "This is fucking brilliant. I love it. As long as everyone calms down by enduros, gets out the system. Right, I'm a big fan. Let's just juke it out right now, so that I can enjoy it from the couch,
and then nose to tail from the bend on.
I'd love to just have a really calm enduro. Would be lovely, but I doubt that's going to happen. I think it's the way the format is. This is where supercars have kicked a goal. That's why it's disappointing to see the category kind of shit the bed come Sunday, because there's so many positives. The change in format is, I think, inducing this type of racing. Beto and the officials are allowing a lot more shit to be sorted out on track. I I don't see many negatives. But let's get into the wet race anyway after we've gone through some of the
So we're just going to go through some of the results, guys, and just we've put in a couple of highlights, things that we think are worth talking. We don't need to talk about forever, but there was some real standout performances across the weekend that just need to be noted.
Yep.
And some that probably weren't that great. So for qualifying for race 4, so the first qualifying session for the event, I'll just read out the top 5 for you. We had Brock Feeney, Will Brown, so the 2 Red Bulls. We had Cameron Hill at MSR, so massive shout out to Cam Hill.
Standout all weekend, wasn't he?
He was amazing, and I saw he got voted the
top performer
from the fans. So that's awesome. Cam, you deserve it. We've been saying it for since we started the show. I
won't take any credit for it. I feel like you've picked him from.
I'm a big fan of. I'm just one of those guys you can see every time he jumped behind a steering wheel, he's been phenomenal. Yep. So it's not a surprise to me. Well done, mate. That was awesome. Jackie LeBrock in 4th, and then Brody was 5th. So, standouts: Cam Hill, Jack LeBrock. You put down there, mate, Premier 7th and 9th, which was a nice turn of speed for those guys. So Richie and James Golding.
I actually didn't give credit to the team, but we haven't noted Jack LeBrock, and then later in the other races noted Cooper Murray as well. So I think
Erebus had good.
To be honest, good turnaround for not a turnaround. I don't really know where they're at in Sydney, but I think that's a really good result from Erebus. And it's interesting. There was actually a couple teams here where I felt like they did such good jobs across the weekend. MSR being one of those guys. Erebus, another one where, Cooper, I think earlier in the weekend, the first 2 qualifyings, it's hard too because qualities are back-to-back. So if you make a mistake or have a drama and it flows onto the second one, you could have the first 2 races a bit shit. But he really came into his own those next 2 races. Yeah,
and touching on that, we saw it with Will Davis, and there was a slight issue with that car in those first 2 quals, and that's why he qualified like dog shit. Because it wasn't in the window, and you just got to deal with it, right?
I do wish teams would come forward and actually make us, in their press release, just say, this is what we fucked up. Yeah. Unfortunately, Davo is last, and it's not his fault.
Yeah.
Because if a driver...
We're going to chat about this a little bit later, mate.
If you lock a front... I feel like I'm on one today, but if you lock a front and make a mistake and it's on TV, your name on the window, you're plastered as the guy who fucked up.
Yeah.
But you qualify last and everyone's like, oh, Davo's forgot. Maybe the bloke should retire. And that's kind of...
And it's like...
That's the rhetoric
when the team do a shit job, you've then got to go out in front of the cameras and go, team did a great job this weekend, just wasn't our weekend. Wow. Did they? You know what I mean? Like sometimes, I'm not saying this for DJR and Davo, but I'm saying in general, there's this expectation that you can't say the team did anything wrong, but you've got to own all as the driver, which is sometimes not the case.
Yeah. And sometimes it is, but it's also highlighting that it's okay to make a mistake sometimes, and it goes both ways.
And you see it in the States, mate. Like crew chief will come over the radio to a NASCAR driver and be like, awesome job, buddy. You had a 6th place car today. You finished 6th. Great job. Yeah. Where you finish 6th here, the team here in Australia will be like, oh, that was a winning car.
Yeah.
What were you doing? So there's sort of some standouts. We digressed a little bit there from quality race 4. And then we've just got there Tickford, not great in that one. So that's, from the dominant team at round 1.
Feel like I picked it.
You did say it, mate. They had a bit of a Barry Crocker there.
And people say, we're Red Bull biased, but the thing was actually based off Chaz last year, and it was just a guess because I didn't think Tickford would struggle. I just thought the car that won last year being a Ford at Sydney Motorsport Park, and Chaz wasn't as dominant as Cam, but he was really fast last year. Went to the Grand Prix and had a pretty tough weekend, lost the lead of the championship, and I thought, you know what? I just can't see it being any different. And I didn't know why I even said, I've literally no maths behind this. There's no, but
we mentioned it. Didn't we mention it either on that show or maybe the Thursday, mate, when the Fords weren't as dominant as we thought? I don't know. This is just what we hear, rumour mill spinning. But, Townsville, they were really strong last year. Off those slow to medium corners, apparently the engine drivability is really good. Obviously, at the GP, it's all mid to high speed stuff. Is that maybe why? I don't know. But
it did look like I've seen some footage of one of the Fords coming out the last corner. It does look like the Camaro in that mid-range part is good, but there's no...
Torque monsters, mate.
Yeah, so I don't know. But that's, in a way, that's kind of what you want because you don't... we've got totally different cars and engines, so they're going to have strengths and weaknesses. Yep. You just hope that... they have one good weekend at one track and then the opposing brand has a good one the next one. That's kind of how you end up at the end of the season having a good battle. Yeah,
or one end of the track they're strong, the next end they're weak, and over a whole lap you can piece it all together. Because the lap times aren't much different. But
it's like Bathurst, the Ford's quick across the top and then the Chev's quick down the bottom.
Yeah.
they complain about straight line, but I think Chaz has been fastest across the top for years at Bathurst.
So race 4, which was the first race for the weekend at the Melbourne Grand Prix, Hill and his first podium. So there's going to be a bit of a trend across these with MSR, but well done, mate. That was awesome.
Well, Brock as well, though. We didn't shout. He actually got pole in the first race, and he went on to claim the next 3 as well.
He clean swept the pole, so Brock's on a mission on the 1-lap pace, so that was awesome.
And then the only race he did convert for the weekend, though, was this one. So race 4 he won ahead of William Brown. And, then we get to Hill getting his Hilly. I don't know where that came from.
I like it, though. And that race, too, it did, like, Brock and Will, Cam was there, but they were controlling. To me, they did it pretty easy. And I know at one point they then sort of dropped back a bit and were going for the fast lap of the race. They didn't end up getting it in the end there. I think Waters in the end, got the fast lap of the race. So obviously the Mustang was quick in fresh air over a lap. But Wood...
Who got the fast... No.
Waters, isn't it?
Race 4, fast lap of the race, 47.71 by Brock.
I've got record here next to...
Yeah, that...
Lap record, 49.0.
Yeah, is that from that year, though?
That's from this race. You're looking at a lap record, mate, which is from 2023, I think.
Well, 147.7. No, that's qualifying. Fucking hell, Scott.
Scott, if you
Welcome to the show.
Could switch the fuck on, mate. I know what I'm doing here.
I'm looking at the wrong
So the fastest lap of the race was Cam Waters at a 49 dead. Anyway.
Yeah. Geez, big difference, though, isn't it, between quali, 47.7 or 49 dead.
Ryan Wood, 17th to 5th. So shithouse qual, amazing drive through, and they had lots of cameras on him. He was making really good moves, passing awesome, good speed.
I saw Ryan Walkinshaw actually walking. I was walking to the podium. Must have been after, I think it was after the last race actually. It was Saturday. And I said to him, I was like, fuck, man, Woody's really like performing this weekend. And I felt like we've been saying on the pod, like he needs to step up, and because we know he can. Hey?
I always backed him. I said, anyone that Murph's put money, like, back him.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not saying he's not good.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if he doesn't start to do it soon, the narrative in the team starts to change.
Well, he listened to you, didn't he?
And yeah, you're welcome. I'll take all the credit. But no, I was actually just like, holy shit, how good's Woody doing? Like, it's fucking awesome to see. And we even said in the Earl and Steve pod when they came in Thursday that Woody was a standout.
Yep.
I thought that his racing was good. And that's why his move on Jack at whatever race that was when he went down the inside.
Saturday,
I think that's just we're seeing him be who he is. He was flamboyant in the races, and he made a pass. He went, it was aggressive, but that's how you go from 17th to 5th. And it was cool to watch.
Yeah, it was good. And Cooper Murray was racing really hard as well.
I put in the notes throwing haymakers.
Yeah, he sort of just seemed to be in everything there. So he's definitely having a crack.
Yeah,
he's not scared for a rookie to throw some panels around. So that was cool racing to watch. I really enjoyed that one. That was the one where we were sitting here on the couch and we were definitely up and about. So that was really, really cool.
Cooper's been aggressive and caught up in kind of everything. But one thing I do like is that he's just definitely not intimidated. He had Chaz behind him and he held him off for 9th, I think, in one of the races. So he's not scared. He's given it back. And that's tough to hold back someone like Chaz. I think he did a good job. It was like really... Yeah.
No, I agree, man. That was cool. Quali for race 5. So... These were back-to-back qualies, though, weren't they, for 4 and 5 in these sessions? Yeah, so they literally had like 5 minutes in between them, and then they rolled out again. So there'll be probably a similar trend to what we saw in the first one. But standouts again, Brock, obviously pole. Cam Hill was 2nd, and then Percat was 3rd. So it was a 2-3 from MSR. Super impressive. They were obviously really quick there last year. Percat got a win there last year. So they've obviously got a little bit of a secret sauce there. Over the broadcast, they kept saying they don't know what they do there that works, but obviously whatever it is, it works.
Well, hopefully they can continue because, I think that as a team, they've probably been, they're both in the top 10 now in the championship, which we've got in here we'll touch on. But I think as a team, they performed really well because it's not easy to go across 4 races and deliver in each. It's very, Nick earlier, I think, made a mistake in one of the qualies, but to be honest, across all 4 races, both drivers were in the 10, really competitive all weekend. And Hill, to go and get your first podium on and then back it up the next day with a win.
Well, don't jump ahead, mate, but you have.
But one hell of a weekend. And MSR, credit to Nick on the first race, I think. Well, the race actually that he did win, I did want to mention because I made a note of it on the weekend. I feel like if it wasn't Nick's teammate, he could have maybe gone for the win.
He had a go, but he just ran too far wide. Into 5.
No, but 5 he was close and then lifted off. If it wasn't your teammate, you'd stay there. And MSR, right. They then interviewed him after. They interviewed Matt Stone and he said, no, during the race, said, as a team we decided that we would go for points to try and make it through the sprint season or whatever it is, however it works, to be in the top 10.
Yep.
So as a team, they kick goals all weekend and played as a team.
Very good people there too. Like, yeah, it was awesome. Good to see.
It is cool though, like small teams.
Yeah.
To be like we talk about Tickford and Walkinshaw. Chaz had a tough weekend all weekend. They're big teams.
Yeah,
You've got people like Erebus now, which isn't a big team anymore. You've got MSR, which really punched above their weight. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have as much cashola as some of the other teams, and they're doing a great job with what they got. Waters found pace. Randall was 18th though, so
yeah, they need to tighten that up.
Difference between the Tickford cars there, which is obviously a shame for those guys. In the race, so race 5, Cam Hill got his first win. Awesome to see. I was pumped on that. You always want to see, Aussies love the underdog, right? And I feel like an MSR is an underdog. If there is an underdog in supercars, they would be one. Similar to BJR, no one ever really has the shits when like a BJR car wins a race.
Yeah.
It's a feel-good story, so that was awesome.
The one shock, I think, was Brock qualifying pole, losing the lead off the line, which that happens. But then he's lost another 2 spots in the race and finished down in 4th. And Will went from 5th in qualifying to beating him and finishing 3rd.
Yeah, Will definitely always seems to be able to move his way up or come back from a bit of it if he has a shit qual or whatever. So
he's just there. Like I think he's podium nearly every race already this season. So
and speaking of Andre, he was 5th and qualified 4th. So Andre, they did BJR for a small period of time, find some speed in that car too. So that was good for them.
We'll get to it, but he equally forgot the next day. But the thing with Randall finished down in 20th, and this is that's going to be their biggest challenge. I think if you got to have both guys as close as possible. I think that Randall's dropped to 9th in the championship, but across the weekend, Cam, I think in that one must have just done a really good job to qualify where he did because he wasn't that far ahead of him all across the weekend.
I think Randall's actually out of the 10 in the championship now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's I feel like they're going to have to close that up because, they've lost the number 1 garage going into the next event, and that'll piss them off for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But we need to see, you got to have 2 drivers close to take it to T8 because I think we saw that MSR is the only other team that's, there's 200 points between Randall and Waters in the championship, and MSR is actually really close. That's why they're both in the top 10, and as a team, they're 5th. I mean, when you look at weekends like this, to have one guy 6th, one guy in 20th in the same car, it hurts the team points. So, I know it doesn't matter at the end of the season because of the way the championship is for drivers, but
teams is a big thing though. I think if you're running more than one car, your team's championship has to be. Well, you saw with Triple Eight how much emphasis they put on it every year. It's a bit like Formula One with the Constructors' Championship. Like, that would be a big deal to go, we've built the fastest car.
Especially with this rotating garage.
Yeah,
that's huge.
I think that was the best call Supercars did. One, for the fans, I enjoy seeing it change each week, but then also for the internal team members that aren't driving the car. Yeah. It's a little trophy for them if they can bump up a spot or they can be the front garage. So I think it's really good. But quali for
can I steal the quality, mate? Before you get into quali,
let's on a hot lap here. Dickens
Cummins. If anyone wants a stubby cooler, apexhuntersunited.com. We got stubby coolers. Finally got ours in a pod, so I'm flaunting these around. I think someone stole mine. They turned up out the front. I bought some
100%. There'll be a guy rolling down the street with like a bottle of wine wrapped in it or something.
Well, I came in randomly on a Sunday for something, and I had bought our stuff is all the drop shipping, so any of the merch we wear I've just bought it online.
We do it just like you guys do.
Yeah, and it turned up, but for some reason they left it out the front of my factory.
Right.
And it was one box, and I'm like, please tell me everything's in that one box. Opened it up, no stubby coolers, all just the merch. And I reckon the stubby coolers were on top of it because they said delivered. And sure enough.
Or the bloke dropping them off went, fuck, these aren't bad.
Yeah. So I reckon old mate down the back, the homeless guy that sleeps on my step, he's like my security, I think.
Yeah.
I reckon he's probably got his cask wine wrapped in a Apex Hunter sound check stubby cooler.
Crack that before we keep going.
Sound check. Back to, where's my
laptop? Quali for race 6, Brock Feeney again, pole. Cool job. Matty Payne, though, 3rd. Good to see them have a turn of speed in a qual sesh over the weekend.
Yeah.
Murray 5th. Again, Cooper, Murray 5th. So Erebus, between Jack and Cooper, they did have flashes of real speed.
I feel like he was always on TV. He was always in the fire.
Well, because he was always in the action, whether he was either really fast or he was just throwing uppercuts for 15. He was in it.
He was.
Davo, Will Davo turned up for that one, and he was
Davo remembered. This is where the Who Remembered Who Forgot started. You know,
they did have dramas though, because we spoke to Tom, and he said there was some drama. I can't remember what it was now. There was a drama for the first 2 quals, which is why he was down the boonies. So they obviously tuned that up. And,
well done, Davo. Good night's sleep and you had your Wheaties for breakfast.
And he remembered. Amazing. Andre Forgot though. Went from top 5 to P17. So BJR, whatever it was there, whether Andre made a mistake or they missed the mark there, that obviously hurt them.
Yeah, because he was, 5th, did you say? 5th, 6th?
He was 5th in the previous one, and then he qualified 4th and finished 5th. So, yeah, they had good speed. So that was quali. And then we got race 6, which Will Brown won. Brock Feeney was second. This was the one that Nick Percat had the power steering fail and managed to hold on to third, which was a good job.
That was so good. Yeah. That was actually really cool. I think the one thing is and he's not the biggest of blokes, Nick. Like, he's tall, but he ain't got a lot of muscle on him. He's sort of cock and ribs. So for him to hang on to that thing. There's a short right there.
It was a good, like, he trains, so he's obviously strong, but like he's not.
Don't backpedal. You just said the guy's cock and ribs.
Well, he is. And good on him, because obviously it's strong set of ribs on him, because he managed to hold on to that thing.
Nick's actually a big fan of our socials, so he's going to like that clip. I honestly, I thought he did a great job. The one thing is the guys that he's racing against last year, I can't remember if it was Will or Brock, but he did the switch back on the same corner. And then this year did the exact same thing. And I'm like, the onus is still on the guy passing to complete the pass, and they keep fucking it up at that same corner, different guys each year. And, you know, Nick clearly had a drama, and once Brody got down the inside, he didn't need to rush past him. Yeah. He could have just got the overlap and got him. He clearly had a problem, but he went deep and gave Nick the overlap. But it was such good racing.
Big drama. Like, for those listening or watching, that, like, it is, you might think that the telecast is pumping up when they say you can't turn the wheel.
Oh, it is.
Like, when I drove your Team 18 thing and at that test day and it kept having power steering failures, like, when there's no power steering, it's like you can't turn the thing.
Yeah.
Like, don't forget, in the Gen 3, all the cars have the same steering wheel now. They're not
impossible.
They're not a bus wheel. They're a small MPI wheel. So that was, awesome job from Nick. And I think
that was actually a really good battle, though. Door to door, like the last corner, he said I think he said he used him as a berm because he couldn't.
Had to. Yeah, and I thought that was great, though, on Nick's behalf, just to go, well, fuck it, he's there. I'll use him as the cushion.
And Davo even came through on Brody in that one, on the straight.
Yeah.
So good battle to the finish, but I am surprised that Brody didn't get that pass completed. I definitely think easy from the couch to be an expert over a side.
Yeah, I'm sure there might have been a reason for it.
But Brody will be like, mate, there's a reason you're on the couch.
Correct.
But
and he's a champion.
All right. Fuck, you didn't need to go. You need to add to it. Seriously, mate, come on.
So Will Dover was actually 4th in that too. So it was nice for
he remembered,
Will and Tom, that they got to convert a decent quality into a decent result. They're nearly on the podium. Ryan Wood was also strong in that again. Like, he had a really good weekend. We touched on that. That was pretty cool. There's nothing really else worth mentioning in that race.
Well, and then we're up to race 7?
We're up to quali because race 7 didn't happen.
Yes, so qualifying race 7.
I'm going to try cider.
Brock Feeney, still one of my ciders.
Well, I fucking paid for him, mate.
He did sponsor me these ones. Brock again, pole. I heard a fun fact. It could be wrong, but if it is wrong, blame Garth Tander. I'm pretty sure he's right. But he said, I was driving on the track and I heard...
He said, sound check.
Garth Tander definitely did not say that. But he did say Brock's had 12 poles in his career, 8 of which have come at the Melbourne Grand Prix. And he's also now had the most pole positions at the Melbourne Grand Prix of any driver ever. So something about that joint he just seems to love.
Very smooth. He's a silkworm. He's just got it dialed in for those high-speed corners.
Well, I think the one thing about Brock, which Shane even said on the pod, when he could select a driver, we said you can have 2, if you could pick 2 drivers, who would they be? And I think he picked Cam Waters, Brock Feeney, and... He said, I'll add a third, which was Richie. But he said with Brock, like, he is very good. And I've seen Brock now, how he studies the data, looks at his weaknesses and sort of doesn't really have many of them anymore, especially in qualifying. When you go into a 10-minute quali, you got to execute. And I think that's what we saw on the weekend. We saw a few guys up and down the grid make little mistakes, and they'd qualify 5th, and they'd qualify 14th. To get four pole positions on what really was often one lap, like you got one go, shows, I think, the level that he is at in qualifying. But at the end of the day, he's going to be kicking himself because for the first 3 races, he only converted in one of them. and Will was able to get up on him again. So yeah, but he's fucking killing it at the moment at putting these laps together, which is why I was sort of surprised too that Cam Waters couldn't get something out of that Tickford car on the weekend, because he's still the qualifying master in my opinion, like for one lap speed.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm spewing that we didn't get to see race 7, because I think this would have been a really interesting race, because you had Brock on pole again, but you had Cameron Hill second again. Cooper Murray was third.
Oh, it was setting up to be a bang.
Richie Stanaway was fourth.
Yeah.
Waters was then fifth. So like the front 3 to 4 rows, it was
but even Kai Allen was seventh. Like
Kai had a great
good. So you read through the top 10: Brock, Cameron
Bryce
Hill,
Fullwood,
Cooper Murray, Richie Stanaway, Cameron Waters, Matty Payne, Kai Allen, Bryce Fullwood, Anton. I mean, that top 10 is and Reynolds actually was 10th. So
yeah, so there would have been
it would have been a good race.
There would have been people, and Sunday race at the GP, you're on the world stage. If you're starting in a good spot, you're going to want to convert. Like I reckon the racing would have been spicy as.
Jack Pressland in the chat on Patreon has said he had $5 on Richie for the win. Easy money, man. We talked about it and was like, we actually posted that morning. I was like, I reckon he's on. Yeah. I think he's just so good when it comes to wet weather racing, and it hasn't mattered which car he's in.
And that's why we'll just go to the race now. Like it obviously got called, but they didn't.
Actually, before we do, let's touch on Aaron Cameron, because we had Aaron Love getting hammered.
Chose to leave,
but in terms of socials and everything, like he's been called everything under the sun, and it's ruined his career in terms of full-time driving in the main game.
For now,
that's gone.
It shits me, because you read the comments of people saying, "Give this guy a go," or "Give this guy a go." Aaron Love's a phenomenal race car driver. Like what he did in Carrera Cup, even his short time in Super 2, the guy's a seriously fast racing driver. So is Aaron Cameron. So is everyone in the field. But there's never any onus on the teams, and it shits me. Like I touch back on the American thing. In America, they'll say the team did a shit job, not necessarily the driver. They know why they've employed the guy because that's the driver they wanted.
Yeah.
We're in Australia and this part of the world, it just does my head in a little bit, because the teams will never own up to having the toes out or having the setup wrong, and they would know deep down the car was never going to run any good.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is the case with BRT or specifically, but I'm just saying the optics of it, where people spraying people online or saying he's no good, try this guy, it's all bullshit, to be honest. And we've talked about on the show, all of those guys could jump in the same car and be within a tenth of each other on a day.
Especially at this level, from 10th to 20th, most of them are going to be within a tenth of each other on the same day in the same car. So,
well, how many of them are Australian or champions, like over their years coming up? Like they've all won championships. Yeah. They've all won a million races in their junior categories. They're all at some point the top of their class.
Exactly. And I can understand that, okay, there's maybe 5 or 6 guys you'd select that could actually win the championship across a season. But when you're looking at guys qualifying last, I mean, Aaron Cameron's sort of, some of them, I think he's nearly 8/10 off the back of the train in qualifying. Yeah. And I know as well it's his first weekend, so there's things you've got to take into account. But it does put in perspective, one, how hard it is, and also teams, if you do, you give a guy a slow car, you can only do so much with it. Mm. And I think, this is where as well, like if you just looked at, if it was a 2-race weekend, everyone would be calling for Davo to retire.
Yeah,
if he didn't get the opportunity to bounce back in those next 2 qualifying sessions, he'd be going home dealing with all that shit online again. Yeah. And that's what, before we even came on, both of us were talking about this, going, this is just actually ridiculous.
We just need to somehow shift the mentality with Australian fans and motorsport in general, that maybe throw a bit of shit back at the team and say...
ask more questions,
But instead of saying, get rid of that guy, why don't you say, hey, team, why don't you give the guy a decent car or something? Like, rather than just always blaming... I know it's easy to blame the organic spacer between the steering wheel and the seat, but...
Well, when something like that happens at the weekend, you got a good example with the Shell car. One day they qualify bad, the next day they qualify. When you see a press release, all the comments should be, hang on, what happened Saturday? And we want answers.
Yeah. Why was the thing a shitbox?
But also, and you might say, okay, Davo locked a wheel in these corners both days.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
it could be something simple like that. Like I know that Will obviously had a car fast enough for pole position. He qualified 18th, got a 3-place grid penalty after that, and qualified 21st. That's not on the team. Will would have taken ownership for that, and that's where it does. I feel like, you know, we're hanging people's careers really fast, you know, and the comment section as well can be brutal. And we want to try and change that because it's not about beating the team up and it's not about beating the driver up.
Just ask questions. Why?
But if you have some answers, you might not beat either of them up and just understand that shit's happened.
Yeah, and maybe don't hang a driver for straight away. Maybe, do some homework or find out why before you hang someone or potentially, you know.
Well, Aaron Love crashed in qualifying at Sydney, come through and finished 14th or 15th from last. And Aaron Cameron, who we know is a good driver, had a shocker. He scored 45 points for the entire weekend across the 3 races. So, I don't know. There's more to it than just...
Yeah. It's not always the drivers is what I was getting at that. So, like, maybe just think about that before you spray some poor bloke that's worked his whole life to get to that point. You know, a lot goes into this. It's not it's not easy. So... Aaron, if you are listening, mate, Aaron Love, I'm sure you'll bounce back, mate. You're a great talent. And Aaron Cameron, I'm sure you're going to find your feet.
Yeah.
But, just worth mentioning that.
And we're not saying as well that everyone out there can win a championship. We know there's still.
Well, there's only so many cars that can win the championship. That's being brutally honest.
It still wouldn't matter sometimes, you know. Like, for instance, you might put me in the T8 car and never win a championship. And that's okay, but you will win races. Like, that's almost. But there's still the guys that can do it and those that can't. Yeah. And but at the back of the field, I feel like some of the guys that are battling between 10th and 24th are definitely.
I'm looking at that qual that was that last qual for race 7. You got James Courtney. Well, he got disqualified. So
he had issues.
I just don't know where he was, but you
got
Chaz Mosler in 23rd. You're telling me Chaz is not?
Well, he's had a big issue, but you look at again like.
Well, he was 3 seconds off the pace.
He's had a big mare.
Maybe he should retire. No, I'm joking.
Well, no, that's where Chaz, he got blocked. So Chaz didn't set a lap, but again, he made a mistake.
Well, there you go.
Then tried to go the 3rd lap, but you've got Heimgartner.
James Golding.
Will Brown's a good example where he'd made a mistake.
Yeah.
Will Davo.
Yeah, last
Ryan Wood.
champion, 19th. So shit does happen. There's reasons for it. But, so we obviously didn't get to race 7.
Well, and also that's the thing. Someone's just put in here, Thomas Jarrett, if the super cheap wildcard is back with T8/Premier, so, you know, they're saying next year it could change, I'd put Aaron Love in it. But that, and then clearly there's a driver there in the right gear. You look at Darwin, they put Cooper Murray in. Qualified Brock for the weekend.
Yeah.
And, you put him in one of the other cars and he's probably at the back of the train. You know, so that's you know, that's just motorsport. That is how quickly things can change for your career. You could be right time, right opportunity, and you look like an absolute superstar.
Sometimes you get the car that's capable of winning. Sometimes you get the absolute lemon, and you just got to do what you can do. But wet chat. So I guess, Scotty, do you think race 7 got cancelled for those that didn't watch? They tried to trundle around and ultimately got declared too wet and a non-event. Scotty, do you think it should have gone ahead, mate?
Yes. I think we've got to find a way to make sure this shit doesn't happen again because you promised the fans 4 races. We want to see 4 races. I get there's variables and we're effectively a support category on this weekend. But we do need to find ways to do it. And I know that, you know, standing in the garage, is one of the engineers I was talking to was saying, like, as soon as they drove in the lane, he was like, this is the wrong call. There's a gap in the weather. He could see it. As soon as you drive in the lane, you're in that 5-minute window where if you don't restart within 5 minutes, the race gets declared. Yep. And Scaife says every time there's a race on, these are the best drivers in the world. But then when it rains, we don't go racing. And I think that's where the fans kind of get the hump. It's like we pump these guys up. And I've equally been in the situation. Sydney Motorsport Park was one round where it was so wet that you couldn't see your own bonnet. So I can also appreciate that, yes, sometimes there is a point where, you know, flag marshals can't see each other, which is one safety issue.
Yeah, the risk becomes too much.
Exactly. But I still think if they went green, I mean, there's a few things. We shouldn't have done a warm-up lap is one. Where the cars were positioned this year, catered for them driving straight onto the front straight, stopping there for whatever they needed, and then driving around, stopping for the race and going. You know what I mean? They could just literally drive around, stop once, and then start the race. They did not need a formation lap.
Our lap was their formation lap.
Exactly. So... But the point is, I think that we lost time because we're already time certain, and with F3 and F2 being on the grid, being F1 support categories like at the pinnacle, they're going to take priority. So our category is always going to get bumped. But I do think that stopping on the grid, we lose time. And then when they came into the lane, that was also an opportunity where we probably should have stayed on track because the weather, it did have that window coming in that the engineers I'm standing behind could see it was going to stop. And as soon as the cars drove in the lane, it did stop. And then obviously you're up against the clock though. So once you're in the lane, if you're to drive out and do another formation lap, you're only going to get 4 laps of racing. And then the argument from everyone is, well, you're only going to get 4 laps and it doesn't meet time certain. So it doesn't meet 75%. So it's a non-points race. It's a waste of time. So there's a few things, but ultimately we need to be racing. Like the cars, you got to find a way to do it. And whether that means we cut back to 3 races on a weekend and Saturday night is after all the F1 commitments and it's a nice long race where we aren't up against time certainty, and then you ditch Sunday because Sunday
you're always going to get cut. As soon as anything,
as soon as anything happens, we're
broadcast is going to be like, nah, they're not going to risk it.
Even in terms of the track, there's people talking about, F1's not going to want us to go green here because if we run off and fuck the track, the F1 race is going to look like shit. If we've driven through the grass, through the mud, destroyed the track. So there is pushback from more than one avenue on about going racing.
I think they have the risk too, mate, like you're saying with the track. If they damage a fence, like so F1 would be
but even aesthetically, they don't even remember we used to have our gauges down on the pit straight because they just don't want to see us.
Because they look like shit. No, that's right. So, they've got the thing. They want it to look good on the telecast. It's all about the telecast. But, also, you could easily cost the track an hour or two to fix a fence in a heavy crash. And they can't go racing if the track's not safe. So they abandon ship if there's any risk to any of that stuff happening.
Yeah, and that's where – so Kate Cooper has said that we might be in the chat here that might have been a support category to the F1s, but there was still hours without anything on track, so the race could have and should have gone ahead. I think the track repairs is, like you say, that's the biggest concern. And also, I do think aesthetically what the track looks like is important to them. And that's one thing I did hear someone mention in the pit was like...
Didn't want to tear up the Louis Vuitton
Exactly. But, this is where as well, there's reasons where supercars would debate us right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're justified. But maybe pass that to the commentators so that we can have some of that explanation because... Fuck, I hope there is some because if there's not, it's disappointing.
I've kind of got no doubt in my mind there would be a real logical couple of reasons why it didn't happen. We just don't know about it.
Do you know what I hated hearing?
And that's why we're blown up.
I hate hearing that they needed to make sure the cars were straight.
That was
whoever
bullshit.
Said, that's the one thing I'm like, you don't, we race on Saturday, we race on Sunday. You don't drive on Saturday going, well, I just need to make the race on Sunday. You just race. It's car racing and it's dangerous and things might get torn up.
Yeah.
So maybe reconsider the calendar. Why the Melbourne Grand Prix historically has always created drama, but we love it. That's what makes that. We talk about, like, some people have said, one engineer is messaging us saying, one answer is just don't fucking go back there. And so, hang on, I think it's actually one of the best races, like, that we go to for action. For, you watch those, race 4, 5 and 6 was pretty cool. 7 was looking like it was going to be awesome. So I think the Grand Prix is a good one to have. I think we do need to keep it. It's good that it's points. But instead of going to New Zealand next, go to fucking Winton.
Yeah, well, at least give it a couple of weeks.
It's close. You don't have to pack it in a container on Tuesday to get it on the ship or wherever to get it over to New Zealand. You could actually prep the cars and get them to, say, Winton for what is a legit 2-day weekend, like you're saying with Trans Am, an actual 2-day weekend that's cheap. And then maybe we go over to New Zealand. You go to Winton where we don't usually see a car torn up.
Yeah.
And then you race in New Zealand after that.
Well, you just don't want... I mean, and a great example of that was Peter Zibris from Premiere. He is heavily invested in, like, he owns those cars. And he was like, that's fucking tomorrow's problem. Let's go racing.
Yeah.
Like, he was all for it. And that guy is paying for that shit.
Dollars,
so he was like, I don't care about New Zealand right now. We're at the Melbourne GP. I've got a car on 4th that can potentially win the race.
Yeah.
Let's fucking go. So if he's happy to run the risk, I mean, as you say, you shouldn't be thinking about the next event during an event.
And I think people say it. I don't know that, when the helmet comes on, the red mist descends. I don't think it is a consideration. I think it's just it gets said because people are like, oh, okay, that's something we don't need to worry about now because it's happened. And that's why people say it because I don't think...
Well, the sport too, like, for example, if there was if let's say they went green, there was massive, all the cars got shunted, could you imagine the shit supercars would have copped from the team owners?
Oh, yeah.
Like if they couldn't fix them and they get to New Zealand, like, again, a little bit of self-insuring there, I think, with trying to minimise any shit fight for themselves, but... Ultimately, the fans lost out.
Yeah.
Really feel for Brock Feeney because he was in a great spot to claw back some points. He was off pole. Most of his other tightest competitors in the championship were back a fair few spots from him.
Yeah.
So if I was Brock, I'd be absolutely ropeable. And I think he did have the shits from what I saw on the telecast.
Yep. Yeah, he did, yeah.
Rightfully so. So, and then also, all the other guys were in great spots. We said there was guys that hadn't been up that far this year that were ready to go. Richie was there. Sponsors of cars missed out on extra eyeballs on the cars they've paid to be on the track. Like, it's anytime a race gets declared without even starting or, doing any green racing is generally pretty shit for everyone.
Definitely. And it comes back to as well, like I know in Formula One, and that was why, like in our post, we put in there about the commentary from Barry Ryan potentially swaying the judge, the penalty on the result on Ryan Wood. Formula One, I believe, have stopped the ability for engineers and that to communicate with the DSO in Formula
Well, that's since the whole Massey
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
they shouldn't be able to.
But this is where as well, drivers in the wet, you got to understand, we've all got agendas. Will Brown, of course, he was on the radio saying, this is undrivable, this is unsafe.
I'm aquaplaning 80Ks now. Bullshit.
Exactly. Whether he is or not, you can't believe the guy because he's at the back of the train after what was a poor qualifying and he knows his teammate has an opportunity to make points on him. Brock's at the front going, let's go green. One, he's got clean air, but also he's thinking this is a fucking good opportunity.
He's got no spray. He's on. Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is where you put a good guy in the safety car and he makes the call.
Well, Carl Reiner was driving the F1 medical car around for F1 for the other races to determine the track. And
well, there you go. Because every driver has an opinion on, they've got an agenda. They've got a reason whether they want it to go or not. If you're in the mid-pack, you're probably thinking, oh, fuck this, I don't need to be doing this.
If you're sitting right in the championship, you'd be like, you know what, do we need the risk? No.
Yeah, but if they tell us we're going green and you don't like it, then pit.
Correct.
But otherwise, we go green. I mean, at Sydney Motorsport Park, and my bum's been in that seat when I'm going, fuck, I hope they don't go green. And it was genuine. Like that day, I remember thinking, like I was like mid-pack and I could not see. So I was genuinely hoping they didn't. But if they said we're going, I'll be like, okay. And you make it work. I would have made it work somehow.
And that's the thing that I think I said to you, mate. Like, you got the best drivers in the world. Just drive to conditions.
Yeah.
Like, if you have to go slower because of standing water, fucking go slower.
Yeah.
Like, your job is to go as quick as you can without putting the car on the fence.
Yep.
So you just drive to conditions. I mean, you look at rally drivers, they'll have 15 different surfaces over a stage and not put it in the trees.
Yeah.
Because they drive to the conditions. I mean, I truly believe we've got some of the best drivers in the world. We've got a wet tyre. It's a new wet tyre.
We keep saying they're the best. And that is the other thing. We have a better wet tyre than I think the category has ever had. Like we talked about this before. When you grow up racing, we go back to Formula Ford, you run an ACB 10 Avon tyre that is an intermediate really, but really it's just a groove slick. Like it's terrible in the wet, but you grow up on that. It rains, you drive on that. It is terrible, that thing, but that's what you learn to drive. And then we get to supercars. I feel like we've got a brilliant wet. Like it's a tyre that if it dries, it just tears apart because it's so soft. But we barely use it because it's like it gets wet like it was. Yeah. There is the argument. I know that one of the guys we're chatting to was saying that turn 5 had a really deep puddle and the aquaplaning there was bad. So there are times where the aquaplaning is what makes it a variable the drivers can't control. You could be just driving in a straight line, it takes off and you shunt. And then the risk is you're sitting in the middle of a racetrack and cars are doing 200 and you could get hit. So it's not an easy decision, but one, I think take it away from the drivers. I don't think listening to radios and things should be a call. I think the guy in the safety car has to make the call. And two, fans are, we need a bit more transparency, I think, on why the race doesn't go ahead. Because at the moment, everyone just seems pissed off. And to get text messages while I'm standing in the pit lane going, can you please explain what's happening in the teams? Why, like, while someone's watching TV, they're texting me to find out some information because they're not getting enough.
Like, yeah, and if Motorsport Australia, FIA or Supercars came back and said, hey, guys, the standing water's just too deep, it's too risky, fair enough.
Yeah.
Not a drama. I can cop that. As a punter at home, I go, damn, that sucks. Hopefully they fix the drainage next year then. And then they can throw it back on GP Corp to fix the track so there's no standing water or whatever was causing the standing water for future events. But just saying nothing, you got no idea.
Well, and then Jack in our chat as well has said that, Phil for Cooper Murray, good chance at a podium starting that high up. There's, and that's the thing. There's opportunities out there where those guys would have been going, let's just go. And if he's prepared to go, surely it's possible.
Yeah. As you said, if you're scared, you just go a little bit slower.
But that was one thing I did see in the fans. Like all the comments were, everyone seemed frustrated to hear that getting to New Zealand was a priority. And it's like, well, hang on. The guys on the hill or the guys paying for their KO subscription pay the same for a motorsport race at Melbourne Grand Prix as they do at Taupo.
GA tickets weren't cheap, were they?
They want to see car racing. So we've got to, if we're going to say we're doing 4 races, we've got to make sure we do our very best to make it happen. But it was actually Will that said to me, how cool would it be, though, if we made Saturday night, they can set up lights, like they can do the lights, make the Saturday night a 200K night race. Now that we have the fuel churn, Dutto was like, well, actually, we could just take that over to the lane and we can set up guns with the portable bottle.
Just Well, even they use the battery guns if they could.
Yeah, if they could, but they could actually do one pit stop in a 200k night race, and then not race on Sunday at all, and just guarantee 3 races. I think that's a cool thing, because race day, of course, you're going to run into this risk, but the calendar is something that's kind of frustrating, because I love that we're going to New Zealand.
What they could do too is Sunday morning they could do rides, because I saw there was people doing rides in GT cars.
We do rides earlier in the week though.
Yeah, but like they could actually use, if Sunday, they could potentially do some more sponsor or fan activation.
Yeah. But yeah, going to the calendar, like we've got 2 great tracks here that we're not utilising still, with Phillip Island down the road and
Calder Park.
But that obviously doesn't meet the standards for FIA, I don't think. But you could go to 2 events here in Melbourne and they're tracks that, especially like Phillip Island, you just compress the race weekend so the expenses aren't as big, so you can actually go racing, and there, bam, we're back to 15 events.
And some of those places, like
the calendar,
if you're already here, going to PI and staying, even if you had to stay for the week at PI and prep the cars, it's not a massive expense. Like hotels aren't stupidly expensive there.
Yeah.
It's $100 in diesel for the truck. It's not the end of the world. People are already here.
Yep.
Same with Winton. It's a couple of hours up the road. It's not the end of the world. So,
I speak from experience, because I did have a brake failure at Simmons Plains years ago, and I didn't make New Zealand.
That's right.
It happens. That is car racing. Yeah. Shit happens. You might ride a car off and not make it. Unfortunately, that's just it. And the championship keeps moving. You just might not make it, but that is racing. But yeah, I do reckon, like we I don't know. Let us know. I think Winton. Let us know in the comments. Another Melbourne event after that one would be good, but yeah.
Or just not so close, so they have to worry about it.
But we have gaps, so I definitely don't want to entertain the idea of not so close. It should be back to back. We could do 4 weekends straight.
30 rounds a year, you heard it here first.
No, that's only 15 events, which is what Earl said they're going to get to next year. Apparently they're going for 15 events.
We hear it here first, AHU.
So I get annoyed about it, but
I can tell.
It is frustrating that we don't, you talk about adding more gaps in between, let's give them 2 more weeks.
Not gaps, I'm just saying.
It's like then we have 4 weeks off.
Stage itself's not a drama.
Yeah.
However you do it, I don't care. Leaderboard, championship. Any notable movers or shakers in there, mate?
There's a few. We mentioned MSR. I think it's really cool to see both of them in the 10. And Randall is 9th. But he's 200 points behind Waters.
He's 2, sorry, mate. Yeah.
Which is big. Like the Tickford guys will be like, what the fuck, man, we need to. If you're going to, and that's the challenge with Will and Brock being so close. It makes it hard. Mostert is obviously still going to be a long way ahead of Woody, but I think that gap will close as the season goes on.
It's Wood I was thinking of was 12th. I know I was thinking of a second.
Right.
Yeah.
But I actually think after seeing what Wood did at the Melbourne Grand Prix, I would say, so he's 12th.
He'll climb up.
And Chaz is P4. But I reckon Wood, he should come away from that weekend with a load of confidence. And I reckon come Taupo, he'll close the gap and get inside the top 10 to be my pick after that next event.
Yep.
Who else you got there, mate? Who else is a big standout?
I was just looking. No, I agree with all your stuff. I was just seeing where Reynolds was to Anton, but he had a shit one at the GP, so he's 22nd in the championship.
David, I know that Reynolds has had a lot of mechanical issues too. Sydney Motorsport Park, he had, I think it was toe link issues or something.
Yeah.
I saw on one of that drivers only pod, he was talking about that. So he's had bad luck, but I reckon that's actually a really good effort by, so Anton, good job. Like 7th in that, he's doing a really good job. And he did race well. Like he was right up there at the Grand Prix.
Yeah, no, that's good. I just think, it's just worth mentioning, and we're going to chat about the teams, top 5 in the teams now. But, if you jump on the socials, you'll see the design that they've got there with them all. And you can see how close Hill and Percat are together. They're 8 and 10. And the same with Red Bull 1 and 3. And that's what's going to help with teams championship. Driver 1, driver 2, or driver, the same, not saying one's as 1 and one's a 2, but if you're both as close as you possibly can be, then you look across to our teams championship, and it's not a surprise that MSR are 5th in the teams championship. And I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere after Sydney they were 12th. So they've jumped up massively.
Yep.
So they've gone from almost one of the last garages, bang, come New Zealand, their 5th garage. Right at the pointy end. So it makes a huge difference. Red Bull Ampol Racing, obviously, fair bit up the road already. About 165 points up the road on Tickford. And then you got Walker and Shaw, Andretti United in 3rd. Shell V-Power, that surprised me. They're still hanging on to 4th, to be honest. And then you got MSR. So MSR is actually not that far off 4th. It's like 20-something, 18 points or something, they got 4th.
Yeah.
So if they have another cracker where they can be super consistent between Cam Hill and Nick Percat, then they'll keep marching their way forward.
Who do you think is going to be the standout at Taupo? And this will be in our preview pod, of course, but we picked it pretty early with Cam. We both talked about that, and we said that we didn't expect him to be up there. But what about MSR? Do you think they can actually back it up at Taupo?
I think MSR can. I also think Premier will be strong because you think back to last year, Slade had a qualifying where he was third, maybe when he had the shunt.
Crashed off the line, yeah.
So I actually think Richie will be strong there.
Yep.
Being a Kiwi too, he's probably done a few laps there in the past. Not that it makes a huge difference for these guys, but yeah, I think standout. I think Richie's going to have a good weekend.
And it could be wet there as well.
Andre's strong there. He won a race there last year, so I think one or two of the Evans might go well. I think one or two of the BJR cars probably going to have a good weekend as well.
Yep.
That's kind of what I'm guessing. And then all the usual suspects. I'm sure Triple Eight will be there. I'm sure Cam Waters will be there.
The one in the championship.
Chaz will be there.
The one in the championship that I think has been, like at the Grand Prix, was quick and seemed to, maybe it's just because he's sort of been caught up in everything you see him on TV a lot, but Cooper Murray's only scored 118 points. Now, obviously the Melbourne Grand Prix, they didn't award all 300 points across the weekend, so everyone's points from that round are going to be less. But he's actually only scored 118 points, which I sort of thought he would have been more than that. But it's still not far to his teammate, who's only 15th and 167. But 118 points is not a lot across two events.
No.
So he's going to want to put that to bed, and I think that his pace at the Grand Prix was a lot better. Like, I think he was there. It just didn't go his way.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I don't really see anyone else. I mean, Kai Allen I'd like to see over the next few events, but I mean, rookie. Like, it's not easy. Like,
I actually thought, I personally think he's doing...
He was closer?
He's been pretty close to Matt at times across both round one and round two.
He actually out-qualified him at one race at the Grand Prix, I believe, too. So
I don't think he's tracking badly at all, to be honest. I think he's doing a good job, and I think, as the year goes on, he'll just get stronger and stronger. So, if I was Groves or even Kai, I'd be pretty happy so far. I mean, you always want to go as good as you can, but I don't think it's a bad report so far.
What do you think about the two drive-throughs that were handed out on the weekend, and then we're going to Taupo next? Clearly, we mentioned that the drivers didn't turn up for the meeting, so I don't know that they're going to have any more clarity on the decisions, but are you supportive of what's happening? And the drive-through, obviously, we put out there what we think of it, but how do you feel about the racing? And I do want to hear from the fans too. Like, let us know, because personally, I'm loving it as a fan. I think the racing's better.
Yeah, I think, as I say, I thought up until from the get-go at Sydney till Saturday lunchtime or whatever it was, I thought the racing's been amazing. I thought the category was doing a great job controlling it.
Yep.
It was hard. It was vigorous racing. Really hadn't been carried away too much. I didn't think, no one's getting hooked left into the fence. Intentionally anyway. Shit's going to, you're racing hard. Shit's going to happen. Someone's going to fuck up at some point and door a guy too hard, and it's going to end up with a car in the fence, and you just deal with that accordingly, which I think, obviously they did that. They gave penalties. So I just think they need to roll on with what they've been doing. I don't think they need to pull people in. I think they need to just make sure, as you said, just make sure they're consistent across from now, the remainder of the year. But I would just say, do what you're going to do penalty-wise, but just communicate to the fans why it's a penalty.
Yeah.
Straight, like, as soon as you know you're going to penalise, they should be writing up a report which can get pumped down to broadcast or whatever it be. Just tell us as fans why it's a penalty.
Yep.
And how you got to that decision. And then no one can argue with it.
Yeah. I think as well, like, I saw that Beardo, when Shane posted the screenshot and Beardo went back and was debating, I don't think you should feel the need to debate with anyone online. The whole thing with social is the rule happens, and then as fans of the sport and spectators, you comment on it and you just put your opinion out there and what you think with it. And I think that, keep doing what you're doing and back the decision you make.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I think the noise outside of the steward's room is just noise. We don't have an input on the actual decision. It's like the Apex Hunters post. It's an opinion on the drive-through, but at the end of the day, that's an opinion, and really it's about having conversation with other fans. I don't think the stewards should feel the need to come in and justify their decision to us.
It's also, this was harsh on our, but it's an uninformed opinion because we don't know, because there's been no communication. So we're just purely going on what we see.
Well, it's not always uninformed though, because you can still have an opinion on an incident.
But I'm saying we don't know what they had, were privileged to from onboards or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So, that's what I'm saying when it's uninformed. We're going off what we see from a TV camera and a picture, and that's about it. So if they had more, which they obviously did to come to the conclusion, I'd imagine.
Or they're wrong. There's also the chance they got it wrong.
Or they've got it wrong. But either way, as I say, it's pretty simple.
But
just tell us why.
Well, yeah, but also you don't actually have to communicate with. You don't have to debate your decision.
I wouldn't be doing.
You're the judge, jury, and executioner.
For me, I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't if I was in that position. I don't think it makes him look good or the sport look that good that officials then coming back under a personal account and firing back at people online. So I that's just my personal opinion on that. If I was in that position,
and the team obviously didn't agree with the penalty because Ryan Walkinshaw retweeted the photo.
Yeah, mate.
Off Shane's profile.
There was so much shit going on with it.
But those conversations, how good are they for the sport? Like that's the type of shit that should be out there because
that's why it shouldn't be stopped, whether it's informed or uninformed. It shouldn't be stopped because it's still promoting the sport.
Yep.
And that's where I know we get the shits with it. Like when sometimes we've been pulled in for saying, mate, we're talking about the sport. We're helping you. We're building your fan base. Like how many fans have we got to listen to this show? How many downloads we had this year? It's bonkers to think how many people just want to absorb motorsport content. Yeah. And we're doing it to help the sport and to promote the sport.
Well, and also the photo. We were not the first to publish the photo. Like the team owner, and that's where like V8 Sleuth kind of slammed me as if I didn't know the rules. Of course I know the fucking rules, mate, but the team owner had already reshared the photo.
The team owner of the team in question.
Stupid.
So
like, and you know, I know you can't because in 2019 I won that race and I have no vision of my win. But when the team owner retweets a photo of the thing, it's just a photo as well. But I actually think, you know, we should have more conversation around the decisions. And it's also not personal. It's just what we think was right or wrong. And you can say it's a BS call, but it doesn't mean that we're going to demand the change, a change in it. But I think that the call from Barry on the radio is just an interesting talking point because in Formula One, they stopped that. And I sort of felt like when I watched the coverage, it was such a quick decision. And I know that when I was in the paddock, the whole conversation, the pressure from the teams onto the officials is massive where they're saying this shit's getting out of control. It's too expensive to keep repairing the cars. We know that, you know, Erebus doesn't have a lot of sponsors on the car. So they're, of course, going to be putting pressure on the category to go, hey, calm this shit down.
Yeah.
And not take into account what the racing's been like from the fans' point of view. They're going to say, calm it down so we don't have to pay to fix the cars.
Yeah.
But that call on the radio actually brought the sport into disrepute because if you're questioning the officials over the radio publicly for everyone on TV, that is by definition, you know, should not be allowed. And if it did sway the decision, that's bad. But it's also just a conversation. Should we stop team radio going to officials? That's all that was. But that's where socials can be.
You either need to stop everything or open it all up. And I think you should open everything up. So to your point with not being able to share footage and things like that.
Oh, that stuff. Yeah, definitely.
It's bullshit. Like you're trying to promote the sport. Even for us in Trans Am with our broadcast rights, we're not allowed to share onboard. If teams could share their onboard from a lap one and stuff, there's so much great content out there that's just getting missed because of these stupid rules.
And Formula One, like, you know, I understand it's different at the Grand Prix, the rule there. But ultimately, Apex Hunters did not share that photo first. Like, it was on the internet. It was on Twitter. It's 100,000 followers.
It was global and trending well before we come across it.
But also, I think that, that's a good point, that going forward, there's been, you know, the next few events, or the rest of the calendar, supercars have control over the vision. And I think that we can offer transparency. And it's like, if someone questions a decision after the fact, it's like, because you still might get it wrong, that's okay. We can acknowledge that maybe you got it wrong, but they release the vision often when they know they're in the right and it's been questioned, and then they'll put it out in the world and prove everyone wrong.
Yeah.
But often when there's a chance they might be wrong, I don't think it's as transparent as it should be the other way.
And what they can do, if Beardo's happy to put himself in the limelight and wanting to do that sort of stuff, grab the footage, go down to Larko's bloody
box and go through it.
Hino Hub or whatever it's called these days, and go through it and point it out, circle the things. This is why I did it. That would be an amazing little segment that people would love.
Yeah.
Hey guys, we gave Billy Bob a bloody drive-through yesterday because of his incident with Laura Jane, and this is why, and go through it all and be like, I'd be like, fuck, cool.
But you need someone that's not a Larko that's actually prepared to challenge Beardo on his decision. Not just someone that's going to go, oh yeah, Craig, that's an amazing decision. Well done. You know, we want to actually flesh out like why did you come to that decision? And,
no, that's what I'm saying. He would do that, and this is why. And then,
but question Beardo, I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. While he's doing it, he can tell why, and then people can come back and go, well, hang on.
Yeah.
You know, he's actually not on the throttle there. You can see the throttle trace is off. He's actually on the brake. He's trying to stop the car. Like, you could actually have that, and that would be an amazing segment.
I did say to Beardo, one of the things the drivers, and because I was full time, I said to him, mate, I was probably the worst. Like I've had that many heated battles with Beardo where I was probably in the wrong, but you're always only going to see it from your point of view. Yeah. So drivers will feel aggrieved at the moment, like you might be on the receiving end, but ultimately we haven't seen that many bad incidents. I think it's been a lot of rubbing, a few bump and runs that maybe aren't acceptable where drivers, if you're the guy getting nudged out the way, you'll feel hard done by. But I feel like there's nothing that, can't be settled on track again. As long as they get their opportunity to return serve, that's what we want.
No, the two worst ones that we've seen is, okay, Jack ended up in the fence on that one with Woody, bit of damage. Yep, that's just circumstance of the track not having any runoff and shit happens sometimes. The second one is when Mozzie bloody punted Goldie.
Yeah.
Like really, as far as contact is gone.
Yeah, that was probably the worst, and that took the longest for a decision.
Yeah, so, I mean, and other than that, Cooper spinning himself out across Brock at Sydney. Like, there hasn't been big shunts. There's been rubbing. There's been bloody racing. Don't worry about that. But there hasn't actually been any big shunts, really, apart from the LeBrock incident, which was just, unfortunately, there's a concrete wall 5 metres from the track's edge.
Yeah. All right, mate. Well, I think we could talk about this forever. So
we're not going
to. Exactly. But we do want to hear from you guys in the comments. Let us know what you think about the racing, even the calendar. Let's go into, I think we should be racing here in Melbourne as another event. But it is a topic that could go on and on forever. So let us know your thoughts. We're actually going to wrap this one up. We do have fan memos, but we're going to wrap this up here so that I can turn this around as fast as possible, get it out to you guys so you can watch it. And then I will release the fan memo episode, which will be all just feedback on the Grand Prix anyway, because we do love hearing from you and I don't want to shortchange anyone because we've got some great messages. So
Copy.
Let's wrap that up there. Thanks, everyone. See you in the next pod.
Back to you in the studio.